Hey, this is Josh, and in this lesson we're going to be continuing on with this trinomial stuff, but we're going to talk about some of the little ones that, they're just a little bit different. It's worth experiencing or seeing me go through some of this stuff as well. What I did was, before I let you jump through all these, I want you just to take note of something that I wrote here. I know there's kind of a light reflection, but whatever. It does say to factor it completely. Okay, anytime you see that in the directions, it's gonna be a hint, right? It's telling you not just to factor it, but to factor it completely. And in the last video that I did, where you were factoring the more complicated trinomials, where there were numbers on the front and on the back end of this thing, I mentioned that at that time as well, which was that you have to factor it completely. If you can pull something out of all three parts, then you gotta do it. It's not that it's wrong if you don't, it's just that you haven't done what they asked, which is to factor it completely, okay? You factored it, you just didn't factor it completely. So let's get into this first guy here. 4x to the third plus 20x squared plus 24x. You say to yourself, is there anything that I can pull out of all three of these equally? And I'm hoping you're noticing that at the least, right? You got x's that can come out of all three of them. All right, and then, oh, well, these are all even numbers, so I can pull something out. Now, you want to pull out the greatest common factor that you can, right? That's your purpose in factoring completely. You pulling out the biggest thing you can and then working with what's left. So the 4 is definitely going to come out of all three, so I'm going to pull that out now. And then I'm going to rewrite what's left. So I have a 1. You don't have to write the 1, but I'll do it just so that it shows what I'm multiplying, right? 4x times 1x squared, right? Because 2x is here and one more here will get me to the third. Plus, what's that? 5x, right? And then I need a plus, let's see here, that's just gonna be a plus of 6, right? Because 6 times 4 is 24, and the x is just gonna come along for the ride. At this point, now I need to factor this guy. And, oh, that's kind of nice. If I erase this, then it really does make it pretty quick, because there isn't anything in the front, so I know I'm gonna have an x and an x. It's all being added, so I know I can do plus plus. And then now I just need to factor my 6. So I have a 6 and a 1, a 2 and a 3. What two numbers? I have to add them together. What two numbers when added make a 5, when multiplied make a 6? Yes, those two. Doesn't matter where I put them because it's all gonna work out just fine. And remember, because this guy is a factor, it does need to be a part of your final solution. And so once you've done that, circle your answer, make it nice and neat, make your teacher happy, and you're all set, okay? We're not solving the expression yet. There's no equal sign like in the last video where you had to, then figure out like, well, what values are gonna make these equal to 0? All you had to do on these ones was just factor completely. Show that you understand how to factor something all the way down to its smallest parts. Okay, so with that, you might be able to do the next one on your own. I always encourage you to try again. And, you make some mistakes, whatever, right? You're just sitting at home. Oops, let me get that. Let's see here. The next one is 45x to the 4th minus 20x squared. All right, I don't know why, but I always do the x's first because it just kind of shoots out in my brain. How many x's can I take out of both? Well, I got 4 over here and 2 over here, so I can take 2 out of both of those. And then what comes out of both of these? I think the biggest number is going to be a 5. Yeah, because 5 times 4 is 20. Yeah, I think it's just going to be a 5. And now I got to rewrite this thing. Let's see here. 9 times 5 is 45, and I need 2 more x's. Again, if I'm going too quick through this, get your math facts down, because that's really all I'm doing is saying what times this gets me to that. Okay, and then the next guy here is going to be a minus 4. Yeah, because 5 times 4 is 20. Well, negative and negative 4. And then x squared is just going to show up. So I factored out this guy, and now I have this guy. We have talked about these a little bit in some of my other videos. when you have the same number, or I'm sorry, when you have a number that's squared in the front and back, this is also called a perfect square. And perfect squares always have a minus sign, and there's no third part, like there's no trinomial. It's just a binomial because the middles disappear. 5x squared, I can just rewrite that. And so because I noticed this is a perfect square, this is a perfect square, I can just write it as 3x plus 2, 3x minus 2. Again, if you're not sure, well, what's going to happen is when you FOIL it, you're going to get your 9x squared and your negative 4, but the middle, because you have a 3x times a negative 2, you'll get a negative 6x, and a 2 times a 3x is going to give you a positive 6x. The middle is just going to disappear. And so this is what you're going to end up with. I know I'm going kind of quick through this, but if you're getting to this level, then these little extra parts that I'm adding should not be too crazy. And if they are, send me a message and I'll try to rework this for you. So we factored that out, made our binomials, done. This one's going kind of quick, actually. Again, pause the video if you're not sure, or if you want to redo the problem again. That's always great practice, to just practice with these things. That's going to get you that speed from all the repetition. X to the third plus 2x squared plus 3x plus 6. All right, now we're into something that's a little bit different. You got 4 parts to this guy, and you got to do something with all of them. Well, thankfully, we have rules in math that let us do that. The rule that we can use for this is called grouping. We can group terms together and then solve them in parts. And what I mean by that is we can group this part here and we can group this part here and work on them separately. So what I mean by that is, well, let's look at this. What can I pull out of both of these? An x squared. And then what's left? Let's see here. This would be x plus 2. Yeah. And then what could I pull out of this guy here? I could pull a 3 out of both. And then what's left over here? X plus 2. So are you noticing something that showed up in both of them? Yeah, this guy and this guy, it's the same thing. It's the same number. That's pretty darn cool. So the way you rewrite this, or the way you show that you've factored it completely, is you group these two. Oops, this pen's almost gone. These two together. So we have x squared plus 3 and x plus 2. Now, some books will have you write both x plus 2's because they're both factors, including this guy. Some books will say, well, it's kind of like writing numbers that are factors. And so they just want to know all the numbers that could work. They don't really want to know how many times did 6 actually like show up in your answers. And you don't want to say like, oh, 6 showed up 3 times, right? As long as you tell them that 6 showed up, that's good enough. You don't have to like show them like how many times. And so some books will say, like your answer should be x squared plus 3, x plus 2, x plus 2, because it was a factor and a factor and a factor. But this and this is going to be the same number. So some books are going to say, well, you just need it one time because you've already told me that, that it's x plus 2. So why do you need to tell me again that it's x plus 2? I don't need to see that. So I'm going to leave it at this as your final answer because that should be good enough. All right. Now, taking this knowledge, if you want, pause the video and try this guy right here, because now we have another 4-term situation, and we're going to have to bust that thing down because, again, the directions haven't changed, right? The directions are to factor it completely. So as best you can, get this thing busted apart. Well, let me rewrite it here. X to the third minus 2x squared minus 9x plus 18. And with the beginning ones of these, you're going to start to notice that there's patterns, just like everything else. I'm hoping that the book you use, or however you're learning this, unless it's just from me, I'm hoping you're learning that the goal is not to trip you up and say, ha, no solution, and then make you like spin your wheels for an hour. The goal is to have you try this stuff and really see what goes and what doesn't, and figure your way through this. So I guess that's my own little public service announcement. But again, we can do this and this. I like to put the little brackets there just because it reminds me like what I'm working with. Also, if I have a negative, it reminds me that that needs to go with all this stuff. Let's see here. Okay, this guy I can pull out x squared, and then I get x minus 2. And let's see here. This one I can pull out a negative 9 and get x minus 2. All right. And then I'm going to group the terms again. So I'm going to group that and get x squared minus 9 and x minus 2. And again, it says factor it completely. And at the last second, I just noticed this guy here is a perfect square, right? And you're probably saying, oh my gosh, dude, like, why is there so much involved in this? But that's just kind of the way it goes, okay? You stuck with it this far, just keep on going, man. Eat some Wheaties and keep on going. We factored out the parts, right? We ended up with this, and then at the last second I noticed, well, it says factor completely, and this is a perfect square. So I should technically bust this guy up into x plus 3, x minus 3, right? Because the middles will disappear. It's a perfect square. I got a squared number in the front and a squared number in the back. It's a subtraction, and there's nothing in the middle. And then I guess, you know, this guy can just drop down right here, x minus 2, and that could be like a final answer for that as well. So in this situation, I did end up getting 3 answers, or 3 different factors, right? I have x plus 3, x minus 3, and x minus 2 as my 3 different factors for this expression. Okay? So go through these again. Now we're getting into some technical stuff. And so if you want to see them again, try them on your own. Make sure you're practicing. There's rules in here, like this, you know, perfect square and like how to group the terms. There's rules in here that you're going to need for more advanced mathematics. So learn them now, practice them, send me a question if you need to, but keep at it because you're doing a good job if you've gotten this far. All right? I'll be seeing you around.